Hi guys, it's Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Today's video is going to be my March reading wrap up. I did not have a good month, you guys. I have kind of been in a reading slump starting towards last month. I don't know why. I was just kind of like not feeling what I was reading. And then I was out of town this month and I took a couple of books with me so I could read. I had a long flight, an overseas flight, and each flight, like the longest flight was gonna be about 10 hours. So I figured I would watch a couple of movies, maybe get a good chunk of reading done, but I just could not get into it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the books that I'm reading that I haven't read anything recently that has blown me away, that I'm just kind of feeling like I'm just in a blah mood, or I don't know. I've been reading some books that have been like really well loved. They have great ratings on Goodreads, but they're just like blah. So maybe it's just me. I don't know. Hopefully I can snap out of this soon. I did finish 5 books, and you guys can see they're not even big books. These were read mainly in the last 2 weeks of the month. So very skinny books. These books, especially the 2 ones at the end, took me like a day. So it is what it is. So for my A to C reading challenge portion, I didn't complete any prompts for the 52 book club prompts. That's hard to say, but I did finish. I was able to knock off 4 letters from my A to C reading challenge. So I do have my notebook here. So let me just refer to this real quickly. That way we can go a little bit faster. I was gonna do this in alphabetical order, but because I do have a series here, I'm gonna save the series for last. So for the letter H, I completed Hector and the Search for Happiness by Francois Lelord. In this book, we follow this guy named Hector, who is a psychiatrist. And one day when he's, with one of his patient tells him that he looks a little bit rough, he looks a little bit tired, that maybe he should consider going on vacation. So he decides to go on vacation in search of what happiness is, what makes people happy. And we follow Hector going through new experiences and describing if that experience made him happy or not. I did give this book 3 stars. It started off really good and it was very engaging. I was very interested the whole time I was reading this, but there were some decisions that Hector made in this book that made him a little bit unlikable for me. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, but overall it's a great book. It's easy to read, it's very engaging, and it kind of makes you think about your own happiness and what makes you happy, because at the end of the day, happiness looks different to different people. So really enjoyed it. This is a very small book, as like I was saying. It doesn't take too long to read. And it's a movie. I did try to watch the movie, but the movie was so boring that I fell asleep. So take that with a grain of salt, but this book I do recommend. Then for the letter T, I read This Is How You Lose the Time War by 2 authors, Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. And this is also a very small book, but this book was so confusing. I think maybe this is what put me in a reading slump last month, because I tried to read it in February and I just could not get into it. I tried it several times and I just could not get into it. And then finally, I decided to put the audiobook and read along with the audiobook in order to get through this book. But even then, it was very confusing. We follow 2 like undercover agents, I guess you can call, from 2 opposing agencies. They don't have names. One is referred to as Red, the other one is referred to as Blue, and they are doing this kind of sort of war that they're going through, but it's kind of a time traveling story. So you're going, like, there's this war going on, and the Red and Blue are communicating to each other via different points in time, because it's a time traveling thing, and they're writing letters to each other, and the letters start off kind of like taunting each other and teasing each other because they're enemies. They're trying to get at each other, but eventually those letters turn into flirtation, and then they fall in love with each other. So we have these 2 enemies, 2 lovers story, who are chasing each other through different time in the timeline. I feel like, have you guys seen Loki? I feel like talking about timelines make me talk about like Marvel stuff. But anyway, these two people fall in love. Anyway, I gave this book 2 stars. One, because it was just very confusing. There's no like, Toby, there's no build up to the like the what is going on. You're just kind of like dropped in the middle and you have to figure it out. And because we're seeing two different points of views, several different timelines, maybe I'm just like too dumb to understand like a highly created work of fiction. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. But I felt dumb because I just didn't get it. Like I said, it's a romance between 2 women. I didn't care for the romance. A lot of people think this is just the most beautiful book they've ever read, and I'm just like, how? Like, I I don't understand. Maybe I have, even after reading this book, I went back onto YouTube and I looked at people reading this, and then a lot of people said that based upon the second read, like it made more sense, and like they loved it even more. But I don't know if I care enough to try to read it a second time, just because it took me so, I started reading this book like maybe 5 times. I'm not kidding. Until I was actually following along with the audiobook, was that I was able to get through this book and kind of like understand what was happening, because all the jumping around the timelines and the points of views like confused me. Like I said, maybe I'm just dumb and I'm not smart enough to read a book that's this elevated in literature or whatever. But yeah, not for me. And then last but not least, I read the Razorland trilogy. We have the first book called Enclave. It's super reflecty. The second book called Outpost, and the third book called Horde. These are by Anne Aguirre. And like I said, this is a trilogy. It follows a dystopian post-apocalyptic world in which due to wars and disease and plagues and stuff, kind of like people were forced to live underground into communities called enclaves. And there's like 3 types of people. You have the breeders, which are responsible for like population control, I guess you can say. You have the hunters, which provide for the communities, and then you have the warriors, I think, which are like the army people that help control and keep everybody safe. And then you have still some communities living up top, which is like where we would be right now, like people that live in normal, not underground. And then, but you also have these creatures called the freaks, which are reminded me of like I Am Legend, the movie with Will Smith, which are kind of like zombies who are like, I guess, the casualties of all the plagues and disease that happened throughout many years. Anyway, we follow this girl named Deuce, who is our main character. Her and Fade are kind of like the 2 main protagonists, and throughout kind of like the middle of the first book, something happens that gets them exiled from the enclaves. They are considered traitors, and they are exiled up top with the other colonies called outposts and the freaks. So once they're living and trying to adapt to living in the outside world, they realize that the freaks are becoming smarter, more dangerous, and they pose a bigger threat, not only to the people that are, living amongst them out in the outposts, but also they're starting to infiltrate more and more successfully onto the enclaves down in the underground. So we follow them trying to defeat and find a resolution for the freaks that are getting a little bit stronger and have become more of a threat to the societies here. So this was a good sci-fi dystopian book. I feel bad saying that I gave this just the 3 stars, just because I feel, like I said, I am in that mood. Like, it's very interesting. I was not once bored, but it didn't have that thing that made me like, ooh, I want to read more. Like, this was easily put downable, if that makes sense. So I think it's just me, guys. I don't take this too seriously because, like I said, I think it's just, I don't know what's wrong with me that I'm not seeming to enjoy anything. So I have taken a little break from reading. I haven't read anything for a couple of days. So I am hoping to pick up a nice like chick lit romance type book. Hopefully that'll snap me out of whatever funk it is that I'm feeling. And hopefully April is a much better reading month for me. But for now, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this sad little reading wrap up for March, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.